For the last game in my series of shoot 'em ups, it's a classic genre but with a twist, and this is a re-release of a game originally created by the Bitmap brothers. The game is called Xenon, so let's check it out. As you can see, this is a Mastertronic Plus release, the second style Mastertronic Plus packaging, and we've got the artwork on the front there, which is from the original game as far as I'm aware. Nice sort of metallic-y Xenon logo and some kind of pyramid shaped things on the landscape there with a ship shooting at them. And there's the spine, which just says Xenon on it in a pretty plain font. And on the back we've got a quote from Sinclair user: "Amazing shootout, classic action, music, aliens, etc. Xenon is a must-buy game." And we've got some screenshots which look to be from either the Amiga or Atari ST version. There's certainly not Commodore 64 or Spectrum screenshots. As you can see there, it says screenshots may be taken from and that would say another version, I think. Inside the inlay we've got some quite comprehensive instructions. First, an introduction to the game, which, as you can see from here, Captain Zod is in trouble and you've got to go and rescue him, basically fighting your way through 16 different zones. The game is described as a strategic vertically scrolling shoot 'em up, and you get the option swapping between two different craft. One's a ground based fighter and the other one's a air based plane, I suppose. Thinking Man shoot 'em up apparently. So it gives you more detail about the gameplay. It's pretty much a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up. And then it goes on to tell you about the power-ups: armor, fuel, homing missiles, lasers, guns, etc, etc. Lots of them to choose from. And then the instructions carry on telling you a little bit about shields and so on. Just the usual sort of bump really for a shoot 'em up. Halfway through each section you'll be faced with a single large opponent, i.e. a boss. And it goes on to tell you about the status panel, lots of information there as well. And eventually you get the loading instructions and also the keyboard and joystick controls. As you can see there, there is a control to switch craft between the ground and air based fighters. And the rest of the instructions is made up of the foreign language versions of the instructions, which look to be pretty much just the keyboard controls. So here we have the loading screen, which is pretty nicely done. Just to mention here for the conversion, this conversion was done by Lothlorien. That's the name we've seen before. They've been involved with a number of Mastertronic releases. Other than that, it's a pretty nice graphic, nicely put together, and pretty indicative of what the game's about really. Fly along and shoot stuff. So it's now actually been around about 4 days since I did the parts of the video that you've already seen. The reason for that is that I kept trying to load the game and it kept crashing as it loaded. So I had to go onto eBay and in an emergency buy another copy of the game and get it sent to me, and that's what you're now seeing. So special thanks goes to eBay seller called MicroSprout, who tested the game out for me before he sent it out, and sent it out very quickly. So special thanks to him. His web address is appearing on the bottom of the screen around about now, just as a special plug to him and a special thank you. So moving on, this is the title screen for the game, which as you can see is quite colourful. It's got a green metallic tiled kind of scrolling background and a Xenon logo in the middle of the screen there, and it is copyright the Bitmap brothers and converted by Lothlorien, as mentioned several days ago in my time. So let's get on with the game, and it's a pretty straightforward scrolling shooter, or is it? Because the game starts, and I have to say, if you can see the sprite, the main player sprite moving around, then you're doing pretty well, because it is an incredible assault on the eyes. This tiled background, trying to replicate the sort of metallic look that was made famous by the Bitmap brothers on the Amiga and Atari ST, not doing that good a job of it. So you start off and your craft can take one of two forms. It's either a ground based craft, which is what I'm moving around at the moment, or by pressing the space bar it turns into a normal scrolling shooter, forced scrolling vertical, and your ship is then an airborne ship. So there is a variation in the tactics depending on which craft type you choose. You can shoot left, right, up and down if you're piloting the ground-based craft, and if you're piloting the air-based craft, which you need to shoot certain enemies, then you can only shoot upwards, as befits a normal vertical scrolling shooter. So that's quite unique and innovative, but in the end it's mostly easier for most of the level just to pilot the scrolling airborne craft, as I'm doing now. There's lots of power-ups to pick up, as you can see. They do various things. You get little rotating satellites around the ship. F is actually like basically fuel or power or whatever. That actually upgrades this bar here. This is an area where it is actually more beneficial to revert to the ground-based craft. I've now got a force shield or armour or something like that. The Z destroys everything on the screen, or zaps it, I suppose you could say. So the idea of the game is, as you'd expect, get to the end of the level and face a boss. We'll get to that in due course. I've got no energy left here now, so one more hit's going to kill me. Got a little bit back there now. We've got things like missiles and so on as well. This is the end of the level now, coming up. So what will happen in a second, and I'm not going to last very long when I do get to the boss, but I'll suddenly revert back to the ground-based ship, and I can't change now by pressing the space bar, which makes it rather annoying because you've got to shoot this boss right between the claws or whatever they are, and it's just really difficult to do. And what's even more annoying is when you die, it sends you right back to the start of the level. Incredibly frustrating when you've reached the boss to have to go through all this crap again. So as you can probably guess, I'm not very enamoured by the game, but I will play through again just to talk about a few things. The graphics are quite nicely done, apart from the colours a bit overload you. The blue, when you just got the blue background and you're having to try and manoeuvre around it, you can barely see the spaceship at times. But otherwise the graphics are quite nicely done, everything's quite nicely drawn and so on. The sound, well, it's the usual sort of blasting, oh blimey, it didn't last very long that time around. The usual sort of blasting spaceship sounds and explosions and things. The music's a bit grating. It's got this kind of, it's not too bad for the most part, but it's this kind of like whirring kind of thing going on in the background at times, which is quite annoying. But basically it's all let down by the fact that the main part of the level is actually quite easy to progress through, but then when you get to the boss at the end, it's borderline impossible. The fact that you can't switch back to the flying ship, even though the landscape scrolls in the background on that stage, is a bit baffling really. I'll try and get there again and give it another crack, but I'm not doing too well again here. You get a full lot of fuel, I think, when you get to the end of the level, but it's quite boring as well really. It's just kind of shoot the pod things that are shooting at you, and then there's a few, oh there we go, died, and I've started again now by accident, because if you're hammering away at fire and you get game over, it just goes straight back into another game. So let's pretend this is one more crack at the level again, but after this I'm pretty much just going to give up. So all that time I waited to get a working copy of the game has not really been worth it, because I can't say that this is worth $2.99 asking price. The Xenon series did go on to bigger and better things with Xenon 2, which you may recall was a very popular game on the Amiga and later ported to the Mega Drive. Didn't make it to the Commodore 64, as the Commodore 64's commercial life had pretty much died by then. Got the armour now, which might help. You get these Zs to zap everything on the screen, but then by that point you pretty much shot everything on the screen anyway. scrolling's pretty smooth on it, I should mention. Really, it's pretty nicely programmed. I don't know if the original Amiga version of the game was like this, because I'm not sure I've ever played it. But I don't particularly want to, if this is any indication. Plus, I don't have an Amiga anyway. So I've got to the end of the level again. The boss is coming up. I think you do get your fuel replenished. So let's give it a go. No, you don't. Just kind of just try and dodge it. Got no energy left now, and I'm dead again. And there we go again. It's just kind of boring and too difficult when you get to the boss at the end. So not worth the $2.99 as I mentioned. And a very lacklustre end to this shoot 'em up series. Most of them have been pretty reasonable. This one is not really very good. And so from now we'll go on to back to the normal reviews, and we'll see what comes up next.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.